We the Urban, thank you for what you said, but I don't feel like I read Nene. Like I feel like I was really kid gloves in the video about Nene Leaks. I feel like I really didn't call her out. I just kind of, I said what bothered me, and it was kind of like an indirect ass call out, to be honest. I think I was coming for like slut shaming. I was coming for just femphobia in gen, and I think that I kind of just went easy, but I appreciate you recognizing me and seeing me. Visibility is cool, but I think at the same time, I ain't trying to come from Nina. You feel me? Like that's not what I was trying to do. I was just trying to be like, yo, that situation, that scene, kind of just made me sick, to watch. And I mean, like honestly, it's like that's one of my favorite shows, mainly because I get to see like black women, and I realize there's a lot of classism going on. All these black women are like rich, so like they're out here styling and profiling, looking so good, and that's one of the intersections. But as a black person with a legacy of poverty, I always want to see black women and black femme folks shining and living nice and doing them and like having enough. So I feel like in some ways it's kind of like porn, you know what I mean, to see like black ladies that look fabulous but still have problems just like everybody else and still deal with things like everybody else. So I really didn't want no beef with Nene because I really do. I like Nene, as I said, but I think that like sometimes people would just be like not really thinking about what they're saying, and it's easy to do. I think sometimes we fall into like traps of like oppression. Oppression is illogical. That's what my friend Jody told me, and it's important to remember that. It's like when you sit there, you try to analyze some oppressive shit too hard, it'll hurt yourself. Like you'll be getting hurt. So just remind yourself, oppression is illogical. When something illogical happens to you and it is oppressive, or rather, if something oppressive happens to you, it's not going to be like, oh, this makes sense. You know what I mean? Oppression is confusing. So that's just like one part of the things. But I also before I start what I'm going to talk about, I want to check the fuck out of my privilege. I realize I'm a light skinned bitch trying to talk about the documentary Dark Girls, but I want to definitely say that while this conversation, I don't want to center around myself. I realize some of the things I'm going to say are going to be centered from my perspective as a black woman, albeit a light skinned black woman. I want to make sure to like preface this with with that, because I don't want to make this conversation about my feelings. Overall, I want it to be mainly a way for us to have dialogue. I realized that this documentary came out a while ago. I provided a link to it on my blog. If you need the link to it, let me know and I'll send it out to you. But I just wanted to, again, let people know I'm not trying to come from a place where I'm trying to like come for or make anyone feel uncomfortable with what I'm like coming out to say. This is basically just me like wanting to like let it be known I am not a dark girl, so therefore like what I'm saying about certain things is all I know about, and I'm not going to go any deeper than what I know about because I can't. And if someone is a dark skinned person, a dark skinned who identifies as a dark skinned girl, dark skinned queer person, dark skinned person of color, if you want to talk, please feel free to speak. But I think that it would be definitely important to understand our privileges in this space. So with that said, I want to move forward and talk about the documentary Dark Girls, because I just thought it was a pile of shit. Like it just made me so angry. And first, I want to address the light skinned folks that like watched it, like because I remember I didn't watch it for a while. Like I watched the trailer that was like 4 minutes long, and I wanted to watch it, but I remembered that or rather I realized that I have privilege, and therefore if it was me, or rather if it's a light-skinned person taking up mad space to talk about something that just happened, I'm not really helping that dialogue, because I'm not coming from that. I don't know what it's like to be a dark-skinned person, so I can't sit here and like have a crazy long conversation at such a meaningful time. When it first came out, mad folks were talking about it, and I feel like most of the folks that I saw that were talking about it were folks who were darker than me, or identified as dark skinned, and I was listening, and I was what they were basically saying was it was bad. They were saying it was bad. They were giving their critiques, But they all alluded to saying that they really appreciated like the people that were in the video. There was like a lot of visibility of like dark skinned women, and they really were like word to that. And I feel like sometimes I will watch things, you know, that feature, you know, black women, or women of color, just because I want to see them, you know, because I want that visibility, not because what's happening in the video or the documentary or what have you is correct or not problematic. Um, this is the chat. I don't know. People are being quiet right now. um, what up, Allison Briscoe? So yeah. So as I was saying, I think that it's mad important. As I was saying, to, you know, be aware of the fact that like other dark skinned people have already talked about this. So if you would like to get a better perspective on this video, on this documentary, definitely I can provide you guys some links as well if you'd like. So just please ask, and I will definitely hit you up. Please do that like in an email, and I will send that to you ASAP. So yeah. Also, feel free to dip out if you're like, you know, I don't even want to listen to this because I'm gonna go and get a better account of it. That's cool too. Because like again, that's a part of your privilege. You know, like if like, you know, what if Tim Wise like gave out like 10 like a 10-page list, or like even a 1-page list, a full 1-page list of like activists who are talking about the same shit he was. He could put so many people on with his privilege, but he doesn't. So that's one example of, you know what I mean, of using your privilege for good. If mad people are watching you because you have privilege, try and highlight those who are talking about the same shit as you, that are oppressed in a different way than you, or rather oppressed in a way that you don't experience, and giving them a voice, off of something that you already have, again, unearned. So moving forward, Dark Girls, the documentary. Now, when I first started watching it, I thought it was interesting that, you know, it chose to start off talking about the timeline of slavery, talking about how black folks have been enslaved longer than they've been free. And even the time that they've been free, they wasn't really free because of peonage, Jim Crow. Basically, you know, when black folks were emancipated, they were just, you know, left out in the cold. You know, the laws still on the books, you know, very racist, very segregated, and you know, things were very precarious in that time. There's a documentary called Peonage, Slavery by Another Name on PBS. You can actually watch it online. I watched it not too long ago, and it was just like really like I never knew. I mean, I guess like I can infer that after slavery things weren't just a-okay, because shit ain't just a-okay right now. But I didn't know that like in the South especially, black folks were being like straight up like white folks would just pop up and tie black folks to carts, like tie black folks to their cars or something. And I noticed that like that's something that we don't talk about. You know, I remember like we talk about slavery for like a second in school, and then we move right along. You know, I feel like we go from slavery to civil rights. You feel me? And I think like it kind of displaces a lot of like the terror, the fear that black folks had ingrained in us. You know, and one of the things that Dark Girls did touch on was about energy, something that I very much heavily put faith in, and is energy. And I think people should really study energy, in terms of like, you know, just how it affects people with trauma and with historical trauma. And I would definitely say that like black folks specifically have a have experienced such a root shock, such a horrific past, that like we all the time are experiencing like post-traumatic slave disorder in terms of like living in white supremacy and having to engage with folks who are, you know, both conscious and unconscious of the ways racism works. You know, and you know, creating spaces that are safer, because I do know that you know, there is no safe space. There's no such thing as a safe space. There are only safer spaces, and that comes from people working to make it one. It doesn't just intrinsically happen. You can't just, you know, that's why a bunch of trans folks can't just come together and be in a safer space, because all of those folks coming together does not indicate a safer space. Just like a bunch of black folks coming together does not indicate safer space. It's something you got to work on. Just because you're with a group of folks that are in your just because you're in a group of folks with a similar identity, it doesn't mean that that's a safer space. Unfortunately, I think some folks, especially black folks, we wish that was the case, and especially light skinned folks, when they're trying to ignore their privilege, they love to gel and say that, oh, we're all black, we're all black. And I think that it's something that obviously other black folks say, not just light skinned black folks, but I think especially light skinned black folks like to say that we're all black when they're being criticized for having privileges. Um, and ooh, Allison Briscoe, please flesh out what you were saying, because like I'm kind of all over the place. So like when you pop up with with things, sometimes I'm just like, oh, in relation to what? Because I'm kind of just going. Um, oh, but yes, it says, okay, sorry, Allison Briscoe, I get what you're saying. In school, it was literally when it started and when it ended, and then of course the African American History Month, exactly. We just don't fully go over slavery in school. It's like you spend 2 weeks on it, maybe a month, exactly. I don't even think we spent like a month on slavery, to be real. Um, and yes, and I agree. I think because of our gelling of racial trauma in the U.S., it creates a climate where white folks can be very oblivious of race, and of social structural racism that is like not just, oh, like Timmy hit uh Jim because he's black, or all of these things that are just very much rooted in victim blaming, which as a culture has been ingrained in us as well. Definitely asserting ourselves as stronger, or asserting the US as like the best country in the world, asserting that like the US is somehow like some very strong force, when in reality the US is largely made of like fucking bullies. It is a land that has been just like fucking stolen. Like white people really have stolen a lot of land, and they like to say that they just found it, or that like they claimed it, they reclaimed it. And I think that when we say white people, we're certainly talking about a largely majorly white system, because when we talk about it, white people are like, oh, it's not all white people. But when you look at these systems, when you look at governments, when you look at large companies, you're typically seeing white folks. But yet we're not allowed to like demonize white folks. We're not allowed to or even speak honestly about white folks and like a legacy of like very like anti anti-humane treatment. Because another thing I've noticed is like in a lot of ways, I've come to learn that fuck, I'm getting off topic. See, that's why I was like, y'all gotta fucking get me, because I'm like all over the fucking place. I'm not really all over the fucking place, honestly. Like I think I'm just like I'm kind of going in, but let me kind of step back. What we were talking about was how Dark Girls does talk about energies, how um you know how because black folks how because slavery was such an evil energy in our country, like produced such a massive wave of like evil and just like sadness and just like turmoil, it resounds in our bodies, like it is something inside of us. And I remember I was talking to Jody about how like how silencing, how unacknowledgement, how that shit can like manifest in your body. Like, and we talked about how like feeling aches and pains from being silenced, from having to shift for other folks, like, and that whether that be physically, emotionally, mentally, there are so many things that happen to us. There's so many physical responses to stress that we may or may not be clocking. I know some folks, they can lose hair, some folks they grind their teeth. There are so many things to look out for when you're stressing out, so like how your body reacts. It's not always voluntary. How you react to like pain and trauma. But I thought it was really interesting that Dark Girls definitely made a note to say that like slavery was such a evil energy that it has just continued. It's like a ripple effect of just evil. And like it's very like, I think when you put it into terms like that, it's something that someone as a person of color, I can certainly understand. So that's one of the things I was able to definitely take from Dark Girls. Unfortunately, it was said by a white man who I didn't think should be there. He was a psychologist, and he was just talking about, how, another thing, the white people in this documentary were talking about, oh, racism. Like they're talking about racism as a structure being like just so ridiculous. And that's the part of racism that bothers me, that white people talk about. How white people can, talk about, all the shit over here, but they won't talk about the shit over here. Like, they really won't talk about the everyday real shit, or rather they won't listen to it. They won't listen to POC accounts of racism, but they will definitely tell you race is a structure, which is true. Race is a social structure that is not real. It's not real. It doesn't matter. It's a non-factor. It doesn't indicate shit. But because we live in a system where that's not the case, because we live in a system that has repeatedly ingrained in your mind that blackness, darkness, evil, bad, couching it in language, creating a structure of hate and suspicion and degradation of blackness. When your country is based off that shit, you know, it's like there's so many things happening all around us as people of color, but like when they were zooming in, when they were talking about dark skinned girls, they were focusing on these dark skinned women talking about their individual traumas, which I thought was yeah, I'm dead. T908. I did catch the change in music when the white man came on the screen. I thought it was very strange. I thought there were a lot of weird edits and cuts in the documentary. I thought it was also very strange how like they went from talking about dark skinned black women in America, and then they just went out and started talking about dark skinned black people. Period. Started talking about dark skin. You know what I mean? Just talking about darkness. Just talking about black folks. You know what I mean? Just all over the place. So I thought that was really interesting. And the white men were in relationships with black women, and one of them, this nigga looked like Frogger in the face. Like, he was killing me. But not to diss this white man too hard, but he was talking about, they asked him, like, was it his idea or his or was he like motivated to get or rather pursue a dark skinned woman more so than the than a light skinned woman. Like, they were basically just juxtaposing like dark skinned black women with light skinned women, period. Not so much light skinned black women. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like dark skin only meant black women sometimes. I feel like sometimes it also meant other women of South Asian like descent. You know what I mean? I feel like that's really where that's really what they're talking about. But I will have to say that like when the white man came on the screen, the music just got kind of like peppy as fuck. It just got kind of like very like, I don't know, like it seemed just like kind of like 90s comedy and stuff. And then when the black women were talking, it was just like very like monotone ass tones in the back, kind of like whenever Maya Angelou does like poetry, just like ominous tones, just like sad notes on a piano, like three sad notes on a piano, and like a black woman speaking. And don't get me wrong, a lot of what they were saying was tragic as fuck. A lot of what they were saying was fucking disgusting and saddening. Because again, dark skinned women do face a lot of fucking trauma and also abuse just simply for existing, for nothing else, for nothing more. And then honestly, if you layer on the fact that some of these women were they were I want to say perhaps some of these folks were more gender fluid. So I want to say that some of these folks did not have cis privilege, and some of these folks did not have thin privilege either, and some of these folks didn't have quote unquote beauty privilege. But I think that's again part of the documentary in terms of like having beauty privilege in a country where the beauty standard is Eurocentric. So therefore, how the fuck can you ever be considered beautiful? But then they also said some shit about how black women weren't even considered people for majority of their time in the US. So it's like, to find beauty in black women now, they're trying to like break that down. And again, they're likening, or rather they're making the dichotomy that light-skinned women are closer to whiteness, and therefore that's why light-skinned women are lauded as more attractive, and constantly just bashing like dark-skinned women and saying things that were just very fucking like, again, disgusting and degrading, and just obviously came out of places of self-hate. However, there were some things that bothered me in terms of the fact that a lot of the black men that were talking about how they want to be with black women, it was some niggas with onks, like no shade, and it was like it was like they were talking about darker the berry, the sweeter the juice, and maybe it's not my place to be dissecting this because again, I don't like when niggas be talking about I look like banana cream pie, I look like a cupcake or fucking or calling me caramel. I don't fuck with that shit. I don't like being called Big Red. I don't like being called none of those things. And again, I realize that I'm in a privileged place, so who the fuck am I to like really be trying to talk about what is objectifying or not? But I feel like when men talk about women in terms of food, especially black women, that shit is not cute. And I think like when they did note that like darker the berry, the sweeter the juice was a pro-black moment or a pro-black slogan in a moment in history for blackness, but I did notice that the men that were saying it were saying like a lot of fucking things about how they want their babies to be dark skinned and they want their babies to look like kings and pharaohs and queens, and it just made me think of like, you know, again, niggas with onks trying to further their black man, black power bullshit, but not at all really thinking about black women as people. Like they're not people, they're a way for you to further perpetuate your black power, which is very much rooted in like gender essentialism. So I think that that's also part of it. Um, Shakira Monet, I think all skin colors in the black community are valid, but I think that it's important to talk about how privilege works. I think that's the problem that I have with it, is that there was just not enough scrutiny towards like light skinned people and like people with light skin privilege, people with white privilege, people with white passing privilege. That wasn't examined enough. In ways, I feel like there was so much light skin privilege in that video of being able to still maintain your privilege without it being called out. Even though the documentary is called Dark Girls, we have majority of the people of color on there was either dark skinned women or they were like light skinned ass POC. Like I just thought that was really interesting that the juxtaposition was dark skinned women and then mad light skinned or white dudes. You know what I mean? It was just very weird. The power dynamics, you know, to have, you know, black women disempowered, oppressed as fuck, juxtaposing these light skinned or white privileged men who are more or less talking about like the broader forms of imperialism and white supremacy that don't just affect dark-skinned black women but do affect. So I think that while they were trying to be intersectional, they really just missed it, because how are you going to call the documentary Dark Girls but you got all this other shit going on? Oh, yo, the first lady. Okay, the first lady you see in the light skinned man with the soul patch, I fuck with them the most. Um, definitely. Oh, T908. I totally agree with you. The first lady, the light skinned lady with like the I think she had like I want to say she had like little braids. I don't know, really, but she had on a yellow shirt, and then there was a light skinned dude with a soul patch who I thought was really cute, but I thought was really spot on when he was talking about how when people talk about media as a reflection of society, when people are getting paid in media to cater to even an even smaller amount of people's actual what excuse me, let me like reform this thought. The light skinned dude with the soul patch basically made the comment that people constantly try to implicate society as to why this is happening, as if it's so out of nowhere, as if we don't live in a bubble, especially in the United States. Like if you think about it, when they talk about the United States, they talk about how closed-minded folks are, and I don't mean closed-minded in that like we're like not opinionated or we don't have like thoughts. I think it's more so in the fact that like we have so much going on here, or rather we're so distracted from like all these things. Like we have like the chicken noodle news, like we have like all this like all like 24-hour news coverage of every fucking thing, Facebook, you know what I mean, all of this shit. And I'm not saying that like other places in the world aren't addicted to like technology, media updates and shit on society. I'm just saying that this whole spectacle, the media circus, that shit is bought and paid for. So to really implicate society as wanting light-skinned people to be winning or wanting white people to be you know, the main motherfucking showcase, you know what I mean? I think that when we're talking about how society functions, is very much so not the case. I think the people on the up and up are the ones telling everybody else what to want and what to need, when in reality what people want and what people need are very different, but I think very similar in ways. But I think that we're just not getting it, and we're not going to get it, and that's just what it is. Oh yeah, true, true, true. I think that it's also interesting how people juxtapose Canada with the United States and make Canada out to be like this really like wonderful place. When honestly, most places in the world had like indigenous brown folks that they treated fucking horribly. Like, you know, and Canada is definitely one of those places, as is Australia. So like we really have to be real about places like people are like, I love Australians, I love Australian folks, you know what I mean? But Australian folks have been mad fucked up and racist to POC. You know what I mean? Indigenous folks especially. So it's just like wowzers to me how like so many people can escape it, you know, and how Americans get left on the line for being scumbags. But I think it's more so like how things have been set up and how people are able to just like coast and cope along with like this sociopathic fucking society. Um, sorry. Ooh. Ooh, sorry. Trying to read. Um, who owns the media? Who's really in charge? They're to be blamed. Exactly. Mm-mm. Exactly. T908. I feel like dark skinned women were used as plops. Were used as props to talk about their pain. But I definitely felt like there was nothing more, you know, than that. And I feel like again, when you don't expose privilege, the press can't really talk about much than that. You know what I mean? If we're not gonna expose the ways in which, like, you know, the oppressed like are being oppressed by those in privilege, then like, what is the point of having a documentary like that? Again, I'm not trying to shit on the dark skinned women who got their coins and who got to get their camera time and also who got to tell their stories. I just think the people who were putting it together, and Oprah, shame on you. Honestly, like that's the thing that bothers me is like there was not enough outlet backlash and outcry about this shit when it really came down to it, because I did see some people, again, I did see dark skinned people who are mad about it, who are like, this shit is whack, this shit is corny. But I just was like, damn, like nobody really was like, nobody hit up Oprah, like nobody was like, sis, like really. Because when they had like that white dude on there with the motherfucking herpy on his lip, I was sitting here like, son, you know what I mean? Like, again, like actually pause, because like that's fucked up. I shouldn't be shaming folks for STIs, but like just this lackluster ass white man just sitting there. I just didn't like the fact that these like white cis dudes were able to just sit there and just be on a fucking panel and just be asked questions like their privilege was not implicated in this whole shit, you know. Like that's what bothers me, is the fact that these white dudes was let in to be cool. And then, you know, I thought it was also interesting that they had some black men on there and that they like censored out their eyes when they were talking about dark skinned women. And it just really fucked me up, because I was like, why do they get protected? Why are these men being protected? Why are we stopping somebody from being able to reach out and touch these men and say, listen, bruh, can we talk to you? You know what I mean? Somebody out here can definitely talk to these like black men that really like came out and showed their asses. But because they're being protected by these censor screens on their eyes, there's folks that will never know who the fuck those people were and will never be able to really mentor and speak to them. Um, um, mm, mm. Sorry, I'm trying to read y'all. Yeah, and why are women always compared to food? I wonder that too. But I feel like I feel like that has to do with like consumption, consumerism, but also like objectification of women. Women folks are constantly like, sometimes it disgusts me to know that like there are folks out there that see me as like a fucking semen receptacle. Like I am nothing but like a talking fucking set of tits to some people. They really like only see the parts of me that have been sexualized by the media. So it's just interesting. And sometimes I wonder, you know, sometimes I look at white men and I wonder to myself, what do you think of me? I want to ask. Sometimes it bothers me so much. Sometimes I want to just ask, like, what do you think when you see me? Because I've had white dudes assume all types of things about my life from just conversation. So sometimes I just want to go out of my way to be like, excuse me, white man, what do you think? Where do you think I work? What do you think I do? You know? I have all these questions. And sorry. And not that like a white man could tell me anything interesting. I think that sometimes I just get so fed up with like the male gaze, the white cis male gaze especially, that I just want to ask, like, why y'all looking at me so fucking hard? Like, what is it, you know? And, you know, some people are like, oh, well, you know, you're attractive, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you know, you could be attractive, but sometimes the way that, like, white cis dudes stare is just, it just makes you feel fucking scared. Like, it's leering. It's very scary. Um... Mm, yeah. That's true. You know what? Somebody did talk about uh Kelly Rowland, saying that now that Kelly Rowland's body's filled out, that like that's why all these like people are all over her. And it's like, you know, honestly, like I think, I'm not gonna lie, and I feel like that's some light skin privilege bullshit. I think for a long time I was on some Beyonce train shit, and I feel like a lot of the Beyonce stans are very colorist. No shade, cause like I mean I will say this. I will say that there are Beyonce haters that are colorist as well and downright racist. You know, will downright discredit Beyonce's blackness simply because she's a lighter skinned black woman, which is like fucked up. You know, but again, not to derail with that shit, but just to say that like, you know, I think that a lot of these Beyonce lovers out here, they will straight up hate on Kelly Rowland and take it to a racist level and take it to a colorist level and make it seem like, you know, Beyonce's popping because she's light skinned. When I mean, like, no shade, part of, you know, Beyonce's package is the fact that she is a safe ass, you know, woman of color. You know what I mean? She's light skinned, damn near white passing. In some you know, photographs or like some print images and things of Beyonce, she is a white passing person of color. And I think that that is a privilege, especially in terms of like, you know, any kind of visibility in media, because as we've come to really realize, and as I was reading somebody speaking on about how like biracial women and multiracial women are like replacing black women, you know, these lighter skinned women that are obviously not white, but they obviously don't look visibly black in terms of having like more African features. I think um but I think at the same time, I think it's important, again, to note that like, you know, one of the men did say, you know, like dark skin woman has to have a nice body. And I think that that's also interesting, that like, you know, all these qualifiers for someone that you're supposed to be caring for, like, you know what I mean? And it makes me think again, you know, about cis dudes and like what the fuck their priorities are when it comes to like meeting somebody that they want to fucking be with for real. It's like all these qualifiers for a fucking another life to fuck with you. You know what I mean? It just bugs me out. And I'm not trying to say we shouldn't have like quote unquote standards, but I think that like when we talk about standards, that's also a very privileged, usually very like fucked up place that people are coming from. That's true, that's true. I'm sorry, I don't want to fuck up your name. Wamoshir Fatemi. I'm sorry if I messed that up. That no, and that's true what you're saying. Gabby Sidibe does get a lot. What up, Wendy? Um, Gabrielle Sidibe does get a lot of shade, and I definitely do note that like I think it's interesting that they like decided to like find, you know, women of color who were you know, famous and not famous, to kind of talk about their plight, because again there was a lot of classism running rampant in there. You know, Gabrielle Sidibe does have coins, you know what I mean? We don't know how many, like she hasn't really been on like everything, but she's been in a couple shows, so she has some coins and she's out here doing her thing. But I noticed one of the things that folks really do to Gabrielle Sidibe is they use respectability politics on her to the max. And I noticed that it's especially like body shaming and body policing, because I know a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, Gabourey Sidibe has so many coins, she should be able to hear that, she should be able to get her clothes custom or get better clothes and za 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 za. When, you know, when I'm watching her on these shows, I'm watching her wear Torrid, I'm watching her wear the clothes we're wearing. So like it begs the question, just because you got coins, you fat bitch, it don't mean you gonna find clothes. You feel me? And I feel like that's another thing we have to talk about, is when we see like fat folks out here having clothes, when we see the fat folks out here, these fat bloggers, and I include myself in this, we have to look at how big they are. We have to look at, like, you know, again, what they're looking like. We have to look at, you know, what color they are, and largely we have to be real that it's like very like, it's the smaller fat, light skinned, long hair with a weave or what the fuck ever that has conventionally, you know, slightly European, slightly mixed, ambiguous features. That's what it is. You know, that's what the fuck it is. And they usually have some sort of resource in terms of like having money and or having visibility because of their privileges. So that's what I'm saying. You know, like being a fat, dark-skinned black woman, you know, and having all these coins, that doesn't mean anything, because we still live in a racist society where your ass is still a nigga and you still ain't got enough money to get what you need. So, that's true. That's true. You know, yeah, I thought that was also interesting that Gabourey Sidibe really, like, they gave her back, like, they showed the backgrounds from the kids. I truly don't remember ever seeing Nan's background. But for the rest of them, these niggas is rich. You feel me? But when we seen Gabourey's background, you know, she was working in a chicken place, and they said that she was the manager. But like, even if she was the manager, fuck out of here. You feel me? It's like, damn, y'all couldn't come up with nothing else. You feel me? You know what I mean? They like, there's so many backstories that like Gabourey Sidibe could have had that didn't have to be racialized, didn't have to be fucking just very fucking like classist and just obviously poorly written. And that's another thing. We have all these white writers, but we don't have POC writing in these like big ass projects, and therefore we have white folks writing about themselves. And while it is racist, it is real. You know what I mean? I can't expect a white person to be able to write a black person, and that's simply because there's privilege involved. There's no way that you can lower yourself to see where the fuck I'm seeing things from. You literally can't do it. Just like I can't, you know, I can't write from the perspective of a person who's privileged. I really don't know that life. And I think that while white people can, and white people do have the capacity, I think that has been, by and large, shown to just be some bullshit every time. Exactly. The big black girl's a manager of a chicken joint in Detroit. Exactly. And the white woman did get mad when she went to Marie Laveau. And I think that also when you look at Coven, see, we're getting off topic, but I'm gonna finish this thought. When we talk about Coven, you know, notice how they made Marie Laveau out to be like this evil ass person, when in reality, how did all the beef start? How did all the beef start? How did all the beef start? That fat white lady, that fat white Dauphine LaLaurie. That bitch, she was out here doing all types of fuck shit, and then Marie Laveau got that ass, and then now everybody white want to act the fool, act like Marie Laveau coming back for their asses. When no shade, they should have never got Dauphine ass out the box, and they should have never tried to use that bitch to give this bitch the fucking fountain of youth. It's not gonna happen for you, boo. Jessica Lange, it's over, honey. You know, but look. All the shit started off because white folks was acting up because of white racism. You feel me? That's another thing. Notice in Coven, all this shit popped off because of white racism, but everybody is getting mad at Queenie. Everybody getting mad at Gabby for leaving their asses. Like, come on now. Why would Gabby stay? That don't make no sense. And they did make voodoo sound evil, and I think that there are aspects of every religion and or practice. I think that, you know, but I think the interesting thing about voodoo is, you know, as much as folks want to say it's evil, the belief, like, correct me if I'm, actually no, in Yoruba there is no devil. In Yoruba we talk about the spiritual and elemental energies, you know, talking about you know, the light, you know, and stopping the fetishization and the hyper visual, the hyper Yeah, exactly. Voodoo isn't evil, exactly. But I think it's also it's just not it's lazy as fuck because Yoruba does not deal in like how pagan folks have like the devil and shit like that. So I think it's interesting how folks really just don't know that much about it, but put some dark skinned black people in it and shit, they'll believe it's bad. They'll believe it's real bad. And I think that's one of the things that irks me about this show, watching it, because it's just so much white fuckery. And then we get to see black people for a second. And honestly, like, that's as I said before, that's a visual feast. That's a way for me to get, my life, for me to catch life, for me to catch some essence from these black ladies like on screen just doing the damn thing. But again, it's just a mess. Oh, hold on. Oh, Obelisk. The intro is mad fucked up to Coven, but look, I was still trying to go in on Oh, I'm trying to read. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, I'm reading. Exactly. Exactly. See, I agree with that. I do. I also stay plugged in sometimes, um, to. I'm sorry. Oh, I was just reading what Jasmine said. Yeah, I do agree because yeah. Also, uh, when we were talking about like clothing in terms of like being like a fatter woman, I think it's just like you know I'm like when I look at Gabourey, I feel like we're not exactly the same size. I feel like she's bigger than me on top, but I feel like we have a similar bottom. But I feel like I know when I go to Torrid, like sometimes like I used to wear a 2 and then I was wearing a 3 for a long time and then I started buying a 4 because I feel like they resized at some point and I feel like they resized so that their zero could be like uh their zero could be the large or whatever. And so or rather, no, I feel like the sizes kind of like got smaller. So I feel like the 0 was actually like a double 0, and the 1 was really a 0, and the 2 was really a 1. But like maybe that's just me. But I felt like, or maybe I gained weight. But anyways, I noticed that they stopped carrying 5, and sometimes I would think like, damn, what if I needed a 5, bitch? And they used to have a 5, and they stopped. They stopped carrying the largest size, and I feel like they just restructured their fit so that it could fit for more straight size folks. And folks, I don't know. I just feel like the body type for Torrid is like just to like it's just a straight size. It's not really catering to people with like big ass rolls. I feel because I feel like a lot of the clothes that I get from Torrid, I have to order up a size so that I can like actually like wear it comfortably. See, eclectic cookie, they surely did. Okay, thank you, because that's how I was feeling. I was like, damn, like I was wearing a 2 for a little bit, but when I switched to a 3, I knew I was a 3 for sure. But then I just noticed the threes was getting like the threes weren't even comfortable. I love Pixies. I agree. Skinnier fat folks do need another store. But getting back on the Dark Girls, I did want to also say that one of the black dudes, said some shit like, um, he said something that was like, one of his reasons for not wanting to date dark skinned women is because a dark skinned woman is more likely to go through things that white or light skinned women won't go through. So basically saying like he understands that like there's a system, or rather he's trying to understand that there's a system where dark skinned women are like systemically like treated like shit, systemically degraded, systemically left out, ignored, and bullied, and very much victimized. And so he makes the connection that like um dark skinned women are intrinsically angry because of this system, and because of that they may or may not, but probably will pop off or go off on you, or cause you to be like sad because they're upset. They misplace their anger. That's what this person basically said. And I thought that was interesting because if like how can you see that like dark skinned women go through a very like a very specific specific type of shit and then say, oh, well, you know, dark skinned women, like, they'll just go off on anybody because they might be going through something that other women just simply don't go through. It's just like the epitome of victim blaming, you know, where you see somebody's plight, where you see the systems, but again, you don't make yourself complicit, which is this person's privilege. Black men have the privilege to really step back and say, wow, black women, they're fucking wild, you know? Black men have that privilege. And it's really unfortunate because black women don't have that privilege at all. Black women can't stand back and say black men, they're fucking crazy. Like, that would be ableist, but that will also be ahistoric as fuck. And I think that while it would be relevant as fuck for black women to criticize cis black men in terms of like their agency and their praxis, I think it's just something that doesn't really fucking happen. And when it does, all these niggas be so hurt. Black men be the hardest niggas, but they be the main ones talking, or the main ones reblogging, or the main ones big upping, or something when it comes to dark skinned women. And I wanted to say also, as a light skinned person, I had like no like fucking problem at all like going to some of these light skinned folks and letting them know that it's not nobody's fucking fault that you're sick of seeing dark-skinned women talk about their pain other than white-skinned and light-skinned folks. You know, like, dark-skinned people aren't talking just to talk. These black women did not come to make this documentary just to speak. I think that that's what it makes you think, just because of the way it was set up, the way that it was edited, you know? It makes you think for sure that, like, that's what all you're supposed to take from it is these women's stories in these little segments in this documentary, and that's where they're confined. But if you really watch the video, you'll realize that like these dark-skinned women go through countless abuses, and like they still live and they still tell these tales, but they got lives, they got things that happen outside of this oppression, and it don't make it any easier. But I do agree with what you said, nostalgia please. Men of color don't want to go through women of color who are angry. It's true. It's so true, and it's so sad because I think like our anger is so like necessary and it's so important. You know, there's so many people out here just breezing along. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Anger is not bad. You know, that's some hippie white people shit. White people is on some Gossip Girl shit. Yo, they want you to act like, you know, happiness, zen, They be stealing that shit, you know what I mean? Talk about some zen and yin and yang and shit. But they be loving to tell y'all, you know, tell people of color especially that, you know, we gotta just love each other, man. We gotta just love. And that's the thing. Black women just stay loving. Black women stay loving. Black women are the most lovingest motherfuckers I ever met in my fucking life. Black women have loved me so fucking much. But I do notice that with all that love that I get from black women, I think that we're held to a standard of action that is so fucking insidious and so evil and totally doesn't let us be real. Totally doesn't let us like actually like have faults or have things that we need or have things that we want to say. It totally pigeonholes us in a way that makes us like so fucking seemingly one-dimensional. Yes, positive or negative, exactly. But it's like, as I was telling my friend Jody, it's some Gossip Girl shit. Especially, you know what? And honestly, I think when I talk about Gossip Girl shit, I think it implicates classism and racism. But I think it also does intersect, but I think that maybe there's another word for it. But I'm gonna call it some Gossip Girl shit because it's like people, like white folks will do all this wild shit, but it's okay, you know what I mean? It's okay at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Because, like, if any of y'all know, I recently finished Gossip Girl, and I didn't know that Dan Humphrey was Gossip Girl. When I found out, I was mad as fuck because it didn't make any fucking sense. But I think that when I make this comparison, what I'm saying is, like, when folks have money, when folks have, quote-unquote, other things to worry about, they think that, like, you know, things are just like, you know, that happened yesterday on Gossip Girl. It doesn't matter anymore. That's so last page. You know what I mean? Like, white folks really just like eat up oppression in terms of like when folks talk about it. They eat up discussions on oppression, but they really don't but they really don't like really flesh out what the fuck even happened. I'm sorry, I'm like playing with my cards. Like my tarot cards are just calling me. Yes, eclectic cookie. I do agree. I think a lot of times a lot of times I am that angry black lady. I can't even tell you how many times I am angry black lady, and it's mad real. And like sometimes I feel it, and it makes me mad. It makes me mad on top of already being validly mad, because I'm just like, fuck, like I can't even express my emotions without that double think that I'm doing something wrong, or that I'm quote unquote being too loud. You know, that's also some white people shit. The idea that you could be too loud. White people created that shit. White people created that respectability shit. You got to be quiet and stuff. And I remember like one time, like I was like early in my, it was like earlier last year. One of my white friends said to me that she wanted to go to an opera, but she was no, she said that she wanted to go to a show or something, but she said that white folks be trying to get people to be quiet, and like it's some white people shit. And I was like, that's real. You know what I mean? Like that's some real shit. Um, and like, and it was a white person that said it to me. White person that was like, white people want everybody to be quiet. You know, white people won't value their quietness or whatever in places, but like, fuck that. Sometimes you gotta talk. And I'm like, that's real. That's real. That's true. Like when folks say that people are acting white, I think that that's 100% obviously implicated with respectability. You know, white people are seen as respectable unless they're not doing something immediately that is not respectable. But white folks always retain innocence and understanding, and they are able to go without restriction in terms of like who they are, you know, from past offenses. White folks can be criminals in the past and still be okay, still reclaim their innocence. So I try to. I would love to do a video on Voodoo, but I think that's like not for a little bit. I think like I don't think that I'm practiced enough. I don't think that like I'm at a place where I could really be like making a video. And maybe some people would be like, that's when to make a video, you know, you don't know that much. But I think I would want to know more before I made a video. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, Jello for my melon, I'm dead. Brenda did die in a movie theater on a scary movie one for just talking. Um, Nostalgia please. I fucks with you so hard. Eclectic cookie, yes. Yes, trying to keep that job, yo, trying to keep that job. Yo, yes, Tay Diggs. It's sad when black men use that as their excuse to date white women. Black women are angry, and that's why I date white women. Reckless. No, I feel you. That shit bugs me out, yo. Basically, if you're white, you have the ability to be read as a complicated, multifaceted person. Exactly. Exactly. I think like the thing is like people are so surprised about certain things, you know. Um, when black folks do them, it makes me sick, you know. Um, but what did I want to say? I wanted to hop back into Dark Girls again to talk about the woman, the dark skinned woman who said that like she would see like light skinned girls and would throw nair balls like at them and shit, and take out some of their hair. I mean, like that's real, you know, that's fucked up. I don't think like again, you know, like I can't explain. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I think part of my practice in terms of anti-oppression is like not, not intentionally or unintentionally harming or putting violence into another black or brown body. Like, that is part of my praxis. Like, I don't want to be oppressing any any white folks. Uh, Excuse me, I don't want to be attacking any black folks in terms of, you know, you know, taking out their hair or anything like that. But again, I want to say that um, there is a level of understanding that I have in terms of like dark skinned women like being frustrated and like wanting to do something. But I think that like obviously taking out the hair of and like physically harming another like person of color is like definitely not something that I'm ever trying to do, despite obvious oppression and shit. Um, hold on. Can we talk about the whole Tumblr thing with the white people saying nigga? Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. I didn't see that shit. So if somebody wants to link me, that'd be cool. And I know you didn't care for 12 Years a Slave, but remember when the white guy had to pick cotton for Fassbender's character? Um, I did not remember that moment. Um, I couldn't even bear to see Jellin. Oh, couldn't bear to see. I never watched the Best Man movies. I'm sorry. I'm like missing the chat. The chat is just going on without me. Nobody wants to facilitate for the Dark Girls conversation. Kind of making it a little bit hard because everybody, as I said before, people come into the chat and they just want to talk about other stuff. But as I was saying, I just feel like the dark skinned woman in this video were saying a lot of things that I thought were really interesting. Also in terms of like going to other places and like having like their dark skin being appreciated and loved and cared for. I thought that was just like, also very interesting. The other side of objectification, in terms of like negative objectification and positive objectification. But I think positive objectification, quote unquote, is I'm not mad at y'all. But I think sorry, but I'm trying to be on topic. I think when they talk about being in different places and being able to see that people do have care, compassion for them, despite being um, dark skinned women. I think when we talk about that, there's also, because I think like positive objectification. I mean, is that real? You know what I mean? Because I think that I remember like one time like somebody gave me like a free, like I get free stuff sometimes, like not all the time. Not all the time, but I think like that's part of beauty privilege, is getting free stuff from time to time, and getting attention and things of that nature. But at the same time, I'm still being objectified. That person's not giving me free stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Alison Briscoe, is that positive? Like getting free stuff? Because um, 9 times out of 10, it's like it's not really positive because I noticed that like these dudes are usually creeps. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you get a free drink at the bar. I remember the last time I got a free drink at the bar, it came with the police, almost arrested my ass. So it's like, look, like I think that like as much as like folks want to give you stuff, positive objectification in line with fetishism? I think so in lots of cases, but I feel like also positive objectification is more so privilege. I think that's what it is. I don't think it's actually positive. I think I just used that word because I was trying to talk about the dichotomy of objectification. Um, but I think like I don't think I think in a lot of cases when there's cis men involved, it's not free. It's not positive. You know what I mean? I think that's what's important to know. Like I think anytime a cis man gives you something, it's not free, and you should know that. Or rather, you should be explicit in the ways that like you understand that. You know what I mean? Or that's like understood between both of you. Because I feel that a lot of times cis men will be very like generous, but it's often because of something that they're attaching with that's usually unspoken or more so pressured, therefore or really not even unspoken, just like some sort of implied shit. And I feel like implied also is some rape culture ass like victim blaming shit too, because it's like, is it really your fault that you need to be like not only like be combating oppression but also be combating like these niggas that seemingly are there for you but aren't really there for you? Exactly. But isn't that some capitalist bullshit that you have to give to receive, or that you must give to return, or rather uh you must return something given? Like isn't that like some capitalist shit? You don't get something for nothing, and I think that that's also interesting too. But I mean, again, kind of getting off topic. What up, Neon Clouds? Thank you. Yeah, the subtext you owe me. Yeah, yes. Yeah, and no, nostalgia, please. Yeah, okay, my question is, and I don't mean to be, I don't know, like, I just want, if anyone is a dark-skinned woman, like, I would appreciate it if you would, like, perhaps identify yourself, when commenting about dark-skinned women, because I would really appreciate it if, like, people would just, like, obviously check their privilege when talking in this conversation, because that's mad important. And talk about like the things that you know about for sure, because like I am going to be reading some of the things people are saying, and it would be really awesome if the person who's saying them is a dark-skinned woman. um you know, and I will say this, I was friends with like two dark-skinned women who were very they were very sex positive. They were hella like into like, you know, just, you know, doing their thing and like whatever, like, and I'm not trying to say that in like a shaming way or in like a way to kind of just like be dismissive, but I'm not trying to like be so in their business. I guess what I'm just trying to say is like they had a lot of sexual partners, and I noticed a lot of times like I would be with like my dark skinned friends and like they would get hit on by people, and like dudes would just be like, I don't know, like dudes would just be like extra in some ways. I noticed like my one of my friends at the time, she was like really dark skinned. She had like she always wore her natural hair, and she had like she had a pretty nice afro. Her afro was really cute, and she always had like her twist out was banging, and like people would like, I remember like in particular like a lot of like black men, like when I was with her, would like go out of their way to like talk to her, or there would be situations where like there would be black men who would like grill me, and then they would like walk over like they were gonna talk to me, and then they would talk to her. And this happened to me on like three different occasions, to where like a dude was like making eyes at me, I was nowhere near her, and or rather maybe I thought, maybe I was wrong, but I noticed that like this happened to me a couple times, and I would be like, damn, you know what I mean? But like also I will say this, she made me want to like wear my natural hair. Like I got a lot of inspiration from her, because I was like, damn, like, you know, our natural hair was like very much like the same length, and I think like I just felt like my hair was not long enough to wear out, and I really regret that in retrospect, because like, you know, I look at pictures of when that time was in my life, and my hair looked really nice. And I feel like that's also, I feel like that's some other shit though. I feel like when you like shame yourself about something, then you look back and you're like, oh, that was the shit. You know what I mean? That shit makes me so mad. But I did notice that like, you know, I did have like black men who would like, and no shade, I don't get hit on by black men that often, to be real. I only get hit on by black men a lot in the South, and it's bomb, you know, it's bomb. But I think at the same time, it's the visibility of blackness is so much more so than in the East Coast. But I would say primarily, especially even online, when we're talking online dating, majority of the men that hit me up are like either Latinat men or white men. But even the Latinat men are like white passing ass men. Um, and then it makes me think like, you know, in terms of being a black woman, in terms of being a big black woman, I think about like mammyism and shit like that, because I think that that's also another part of it. You know, being a bigger black woman, being a bigger woman, period, people think that like you're gonna take care of them. Being a bigger black woman, especially in the South, I feel like somehow has a connotation somehow, that, you know, that's been brought through for a while. um Word nostalgia, please. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for saying that, but I think that at the same time, what you were saying was real. But I was just asking. I was just asking people to just, you know, say, you know, rep their set. You feel me? Because I want dark skinned folks. I want dark skinned women in particular to talk. Um, so I definitely think that that's important. Word, and I feel like, you know, I feel like in the dichotomy we have to be real about you know, the fact that like while there's light skin privilege, there's also like the middle binary of being a brown skinned person and having like still having racism affect you, obviously still having people say things about your color, but perhaps being more favored than having darker skin, or perhaps like people remarking that like you could be darker, or like you're just dark enough, you know, and shit like that. That's whack, you know. Word, Adora E. I'm dark skinned with thin privilege. Word, brown skin. Shakira Monet, what up? What up, Alison Briscoe, brown skinned person? What up? Um, no, Shakira Monet. I don't think it's a separation, like in terms of like folks are separating themselves. I see. I don't want to say that, because I think folks with privilege do separate themselves, but I do think that it's important to talk about it. Um, True. When people say they're brown skin, trying to separate themselves, I agree, Groovy Spice. But I think at the same time, like there isn't just light skin and dark skin. Like I think that that's true too. And and that's just me being real right now. That's just me trying to say that like there's that in between where people do. And like I think it was just confirmed. Eclectic Cookie just said that just dark enough is real. Exactly. Like folks will like folks. I feel like brown skin folks get way more love than fucking light skinned folks and excuse me than dark skinned folks. So I feel like it's important to also talk about that privilege as well. The paper bag test, yeah, because the paper bag test, like, I mean, if you think about a paper bag, it's pretty fucking light, but it's not the lightest. And I mean, even me as a light skinned person, there are people lighter than myself, more white skinned, or rather more white passing than myself. And I remember reading, or rather when I saw dark skinned girls, they were talking about there were like over 60 different colors that they associated with blackness. So I think that's also interesting too, that there's like 64 different motherfucking shades, and we over here talking about light skin, dark skin, brown skin. You feel me? So that's also interesting. Word Eclectic Cookie. I feel you. Um, mm. Allison Briscoe, I do agree. Um, you never want to undermine someone else's struggle by claiming something you're not. I do agree. And I think it's important, it's important to say what you are, or rather identify that. Do you think light-skinned girls realize that they are privileged? I think by and large, light-skinned girls don't feel privileged. I think it's mainly because we do live in a racist society, and I feel like they're still stuck on, but I'm black too. Or rather, they're on some shit where like they feel like because they have to fight so hard to claim their blackness, if they are trying to claim it, that folks really don't fucking that they're not a part of the problem. And I feel like light skinned people really spend so much time crying about how people don't think they're black and whining about how people don't take their blackness into account. But I think that they also spend a lot of time distancing themselves from blackness by either claiming to be mixed or claiming their mixedness as a prize or a trophy, or just talking about their mixedness in like so many ways. I remember like being around mixed people like used to be like a really big thing for me, because I would be like, oh, I'm mixed too, and it was just like we would talk about our mixedness and za. But I remember that there was a lot of racism in that group of folks talking about their mixedness, because I feel like there was always this idea of what a mixed girl looked like, that was very whitewashed and very Eurocentric with quote unquote good hair. And I think that it was just, I don't know, I think in a lot of ways light skinned girls don't get it, and or rather light skinned women don't get it. And I think that again, I feel like light skinned people's main confusion, struggle, especially as I'm speaking for like light skinned people who are like mixed perhaps with like white and would have one white parent or one white passing parent like I have. You get caught up in like trying to be the multicultural nigga, you know what I mean? And don't be mixed with more than just black and white, because then those folks be feeling like they're every motherfucking thing. You feel me? They feel like they can understand every system of oppression. But the thing is, if you go out in the world as a light-skinned, ambiguously racial person, your privilege is off the fucking charts. People are so delighted to meet your ass and figure out why you so light-skinned and your hair so damn kinky and curly and smooth and looks like that, and why, and za. That, I remember watching a documentary once where like they were talking about colorism, and I think it was Tyra. And I hate Tyra. But I think one of the dark-skinned women in the crowd said to the light-skinned woman, when white people or other folks ask you what you are and they seem so excited, they hold that opposite of that feeling for me. And that shit really struck me, because there's so many white folks who, when they see me, depending on my hair or my presentation, that get so hyped to ask me, where am I from? It gets so let down when I tell them Connecticut. But white folks really like, or privileged folks, white folks, typically do have so many questions for light-skinned folks or ambiguously racial folks, because I feel like it's some colonizer shit trying to figure out where the fuck you from, and they'll tell you about a friend that looks like you. Or I've had white ladies come up to me asking me, do I have any Filipina in me? You know what I mean? Like, what's in you? What's, like, you know what I mean? As if I'm holding all of these identities just fumbling around. It's just very hard. It's very hard to talk about this in terms of, like, you know, how dark skinned people feel, because again, these white people be so eager to talk to me. Sometimes it makes me fucking sick. And it's true, they are hoping that it's anything but black. I notice when I tell people I'm black, when I say no, I'm black, I notice that their smile is gone, or they'll just say oh, or they'll just move on. So it's just like, damn, they had all this motherfucking excitement, all this motherfucking hype to talk to me, but now it's gone because they found out that I'm just black. So I can't imagine what it's like to see somebody who's not just black, they're blacker than a motherfucker, to actually make eyes and to make contact with black folks. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, I don't know what the fuck that is, but I do have so many white folks hit me up and ask me, and when I heard that dark skinned person say that excitement that white folks have when they want to talk to a light skinned person, when they want to ask you where you're from, that I get the opposite of that shit, and that's real. So and again, that's not a compliment. It's not a compliment for us either. And I feel like, again, that's why light skinned women don't get it, is because they're so caught up in that moment where someone dares ask them if they're black, or someone dare ask them if they're Latina, because I know I get that a lot. Or people ask me if I'm Asian. People will be like, are you Asian? They're like, are you part Asian? Or they'll be like, are you a Latina person? You know, or they'll say I'm Hispanic. But I feel like, you know, if we're being inclusive here, they'll be asking, like, they won't always say Hispanic. They'll say different. They'll say all different. They'll name all different types of countries, but they're really asking me if I'm a Latina person. But you know what the thing is? It's not a compliment, but we're supposed to take anything but black as a compliment. We're supposed to be excited that we don't look black on sight. And that's what it is, and that's what privilege is. The fact that, like, people get so hyped to see someone that's not black. You know what I mean? They're like, wow, you're not black. You know, And again, I could sit here and have conversations about, like, all the racist shit that I've encountered, but that's not the space that I was trying to create. I was really trying to talk about, you know, my experience watching this documentary. But I feel like it's been said, you know, it missed the mark a lot. It just didn't talk about privilege at all. Like, I'm from New York and moved to St. Louis, where they have a different dialect and whatnot from people who aren't from New York. So when they tell me you sound black or act black, it annoys the fuck out of me. No, I agree. And that's the thing. I feel like, you know what, I want to say this. I love the way black folks from New York be talking. That shit be killing me, yo. Y'all is mad funny. But I think at the same time, I think, you know, obviously not all black folks talk alike. Not all black folks in New York talk alike. Not all black folks in New York have the same use of African American vernacular English. So obviously that's racist as fuck and wild as fuck. But I think that is wildin', when people categorize language as black intrinsically. When we all know that blackness typically is bad, or rather as seen as a negative. So when they say something like that, you typically are like, okay, well, they're not saying it in a way with their context is negative. Let me see how much time. Oh, wow, an hour and 11 minutes. God damn it. Well, you know what? Sometimes it be long. Somebody told you look Dominican, and you're like, nah, just Haitian. That's funny. Yeah, no, I've definitely had people ask me if I was Hawaiian. I've definitely had people ask me if I was fucking Polynesian. Somebody asked me if I was Cambodian. I've just had so many folks ask me so many different questions. I thought it was really interesting. But I used to think it was interesting. Now I just know it's fucking racist. But, like, I used to think it was interesting. I remember a white person actually pointed it out as racist to me once. I remember somebody white came up to me, a coworker of mine, and was like, you know, it's fucked up that people ask you where you're from. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He's like, you work at a hostel in Boston. He was like, you work at a place where, like, there's constantly people internationally coming in. So, I mean, granted, like, these people are not from America, but America's not just white folks. And I'm like, that's real, you know? But, like, again, I wasn't clocking it. I was just like, you know, at the time, I was so, like, caught up in being, I was so caught up in my privilege that I was really not really clocking it. And I was just so like, oh, like, they think I'm from here. And it's like, it seems so interesting. But at the end of the day, it's like, they think I'm from here because my land, or they think I'm not from here because this land has been colonized by white folks. You feel me? That's what it is. No, exactly, Miss Vendetta. Exactly. America was never just white folks. But that's what I'm saying. Like, they, like, the reason why they can't believe that I'm from America is because they know the colonizer done hit this shit up. You know what I mean? They're like, there's black folks here. But I mean, at the same time, the colonizers came and brought slaves. So I mean, when people ask me, a black person, like where I'm from, I'm like here. But I wish I had roots to like where in Africa my people was from. I wish I had roots to like even my family in Jamaica. You know what I mean? Even my family past my like father's family who are immigrants. I don't have any lineage past that, you know, and it sucks. But that's part of the diaspora. White people can have different accents and whatever, but POC can't, right? You ain't lying. See, that's the thing too. I feel like, you know what? I feel like in some ways, like, you know, I really enjoy wearing like natural hair weaves, but I feel like whenever I don't wear natural hair weaves, I feel like that's when I'm more so seen as ambiguously racial. I feel like with this hair, no matter how light or how dark it is, folks are like, okay, that's a black person. I can believe that. But I feel like even still, I still do get miscategorized as a non-black person or as a black person, obviously with like, you know, beauty privilege, so that automatically makes it so that, you know, I feel like black person with beauty privilege is constantly seen as you know, a step up, just like black person with money, a step up. It's like all these things that help you, all these privileges that help you posture, give you this air about you that is fucked up. But pause. I'm sorry. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, or had money to pay for that test. Yeah, right. I wish I had money to pay for that test so I could see where my roots is from. Okay, so I'm going to dip. I love y'all, and I really enjoyed having this conversation, but I feel like we should have another one, I think, outside of like the conversation of dark girls, just because, again, I don't want to be talking over folks about shit I don't know about, but also I want to definitely have a conversation in terms of like colorism and privilege and what like light-skinned folks can do, you know, and use their privilege in positive ways. Because like that's what privileged folks need to do, is have conversations with other privileged folks about how we can fucking you know, use our privilege for positive things. So thank you so much, you know, for watching. I appreciate y'all so much, you know, for taking part in this. Again, if you did want to watch a review of dark skinned girls by a person who is a dark skinned person who definitely has more of a perspective on this than I do, I will definitely provide links when I post this video. They'll be in the description bar below. All right, take care, y'all.